On this episode of Inside Engineering, we talk with project manager Ryan Leiberher about biology, wetland delineation, and the topic you've all been waiting for, bats. Inside Engineering, untold stories and fascinating people from the world of civil engineering. This is episode 7, recorded in September 2019. Natural Resources and Bats with Ryan Leiberher. Inside Engineering is brought to you by RK&K. Learn more at rkk.com. All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Inside Engineering. We've got another great episode here for you this week. Joining us in the studio is Ryan Leiberher. He works in our Harrisburg office normally, but he has been kind enough to come down to our studio today and talk about what he does. Ryan is a project manager. But Ryan, welcome to the show. We're glad to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Sure. So, like I said, you're a project manager.
Yep.
But that's just kind of an industry term.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit of what you actually do.
Okay, well, I'll start with my background first. So, engineering podcast, but I'm a biologist. My formal education is from Penn State. I have a wildlife degree. And then I have an environmental biology degree from Edinburgh University. So like my day-to-day, ever since I started my career, has been on the biological side of things. So even though I'm listed as a project manager, it's really, I kind of added the caveat, the tag after that as environment, or I think natural resources or something I put in there because I think that is so non-descriptive. And when we send emails to clients or whatever, they're like, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Yeah, right.
So at least it kind of ties, like adding that natural resources kind of component kind of ties that title to something so that you're not just some project manager.
Right.
So my background's biology though. So
on our previous episode, we had John Reinhardt.
Oh yeah.
He's our career and leadership program manager.
Yeah.
He's a big fan of yours.
Okay.
And around the office, around the company, Ryan is, perhaps for better or worse, but we're going to go for better, known as the Batman.
Yep.
Because he does some work with bats, but that's only a small part of what he does. So, but yeah. I think it's really interesting part. So can you talk about the work that you do with bats and maybe why you're known as the Batman? And then we'll in a little bit, we'll get into the majority of what you do, which is different stuff.
Yeah, sure. I get that a lot. Pretty much everywhere I've worked, I've been dubbed the Batman. So
it's not the worst title.
No, it's not. And it is interesting. And I can appreciate that people, have an interest in that. So, and I wish I had a great story as to, like I was a kid and I found this bat and I became interested in it, but I really don't have.
You fell down a well.
No. I really don't have a great story. Just with my background in biology, my first job out of college, I was working at a smaller engineering consulting firm, and they had a need. They were dealing with a lot of threatened endangered species issues on projects, and they were subcontracting out a lot of that work to other smaller consultants to handle the threatened endangered species kind of niche stuff. And they decided they wanted to try to do that in house. So they pretty much asked me. It was like my first or second year out of college. They said, "Do you have any interest in threatened endangered species, specifically bats?" And I said, "Well, yeah, my degree. I have a wildlife degree, so I'm interested kind of in all that stuff." And they said, "Well, would you be interested in getting your certification to be on this qualified bat surveyor list for the Indiana bat?" The Indiana bat is the most known bat because it's a federally endangered species. So they have, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service has a list of qualified surveyors that they keep. And they asked me, "You want to be on, could you pursue this?" And I said, I'm just a young guy out of college. I'm just trying to keep my job, get a job, have a career. And I'm like, sure, yeah, if that's what you want me to do, that's what I'll do it. And so that's kind of the road that I went down to get, to do these bat surveys. And it's pretty interesting. There's lots of different types of surveys that are done. And it's pretty cool, the different things I've done over the years with bats. It's a pretty wide variety of different kinds of surveys and things. So,
why would our clients need a bat survey?
Other than just because they're interested, which never happens.
Right.
They're doing it usually for a regulatory reason. They're trying to get an authorization to build a highway. to develop oil and gas assets somewhere or whatever. And as part of those projects, permitting is usually involved. And in Pennsylvania, we have state and federal authorizations that they need to attain to do these projects. And as part of that, it's threatened and endangered species coordination is one of those things. So when your project's located in an area where you have potential threatened and endangered species issue, sometimes you're required to do these types of surveys. So that's kind of why it comes up. It's part of a permit requirement typically.
And where are some places, if you're doing a survey for something that's being built or improved, or where are some places that you might typically find bats in I think generally we think of bats living in caves and stuff.
In your attic.
Right,
Yeah.
in your attic, right.
Yeah.
Where are you finding them out on job sites?
Yeah, so a lot of times we'll find them. One of the most recent kind of hot topics is bats and bridges. Bats are using bridges as artificial roosts, and they'll go in, they'll use those roosts during the day. They'll roost inside the bridge structure as opposed to in a tree or somewhere else in a rock cliff or something. Certain species seem to enjoy roosting in bridge structures. So recently we've done quite a few surveys for bats in bridges. The Department of Transportation, whichever it is, whether it's in Pennsylvania or Florida or Maryland or whoever, needs to do maintenance on a structure or needs to do something with the structure, and there's a colony in there, or there's bats in there, so they got to kind of deal with that as part of the project. So that's one of the most recent things. In the past, we've done presence absence. I've done a lot of presence absence surveys. So just for example, you're building a big roadway corridor and you're trying to get the environmental clearances. There's going to be a lot of timber removal, land clearing, things like that. Fish and Wildlife Service will say, hey, you might have Indiana bats out here. You should probably do this survey, whether it's acoustical survey or a netting survey for presence absence of these species. And we used to do a lot more of those types of surveys, but a little less now because there's a lot less large roadway corridors and things being built than there were back in the early 2000s.
Okay. So if you were doing an acoustical or a netting survey, what does that look like? Or sound like?
Physically?
Right, yeah,
So there's a couple things. So the acoustic survey is actually pretty cool. It's technology that's more recent, and it's passive technology. So what it does is you're setting out a detector unit that will record bat calls, and bat calls are ultrasonic. So if you go out, you can't typically hear them, but they're making these ultrasonic calls. The unit will record that information, and then you can run it through special computer software, and it'll give you an idea of what species are flying around out there. Conversely, the mist netting survey, it's more of a hands-on. Literally, you're putting nets up, and you're putting them in corridors where bats would like to fly, whether it's like an old logging road through the woods, a hiking trail, ATV path, things like that. Bats are kind of like deer, and they'll use paths through the woods to navigate. So you're putting these nets up in the places where that they spend most of their time, whether it's traveling and or foraging in a certain area, whether like it's over ponds or water areas, and you're physically trying to catch those bats in the net, pull them out of the net, identify the species type, and see what they are.
What's there?
So it's an active survey versus a passive survey, which is acoustic information. You're collecting that data and then you're analyzing it. So two different types, but those are both Fish and Wildlife Service presence probable absence surveys that they allow you to use for threatened endangered bat species.
Okay. So yeah. Let's say you do a survey of a bridge and there's bats under there.
Sure.
And the client also wants you to not get rid of them, but how do we get them out of the way safely?
Okay. Yeah.
What do you do to do that?
So we've had quite a few projects that we've done this on, and it's exclusion projects. So you identify where the bats are, and then depending where you are in the country, there's different techniques. In Pennsylvania, for example, they only use these structures. They're only using the structures during the spring, summer, and fall. In the wintertime, they're hibernating, so they're not in these structures at that time. So a lot of the work that we'll do if we identify bats on a bridge and where bats hibernate is we'll do any kind of exclusionary work when bats aren't there, when the bats are in the wintertime when they're hibernating, they're not using the structure. We'll try to exclude them, fill the cracks in the bridge before they do the maintenance on it with some mesh or some foam or whatever, so they can't get in the structure. Recently, and John's I think he's really interested in the project we just did down in Florida, which was pretty cool because for me it was a little different because same type of procedure, except the bats don't leave or they don't hibernate. It's Florida. It's never cold. So bats are in the structure year round. Okay. So we had a little bit different techniques there where we identified where the bats were in this bridge structure. We allowed, we had like one-way doors and escape tubes for them to get out of. But they can't get back up into the bridge through these devices that we installed in the bridge. So that was pretty cool. It was different. Fish and Wildlife Service I was concerned about where are these bats going to go that they can't get in the bridge. And the Fish and Wildlife Service wasn't too concerned about that particular species that was there. They just said there's plenty of habitat. They'll go somewhere in a different structure or somewhere else close by. There's plenty of things around. But if it was a threatened endangered species, it probably would have been a little bit different story. But yeah, that was an interesting, very interesting project. And first for me to do bat work in Florida, which was pretty awesome.
How did that, I mean, ultimately it might be somewhat obvious, but how did that solution help the client?
Well, it's going to help them move forward in that particular bridge structure needed a lot of maintenance. And it's a 2-lane bridge and it's in a very busy part of Florida on the Gulf Coast side. So there was very specific working time frames and things, and couldn't close the bridge totally because of the public, and there were some real specific things there. So basically the work that we did there will give the DOT the latitude to do the work that they need to do to upgrade that structure and work on that structure. We excluded the bats, so we're excluding the bat. You have two positive things there. You're excluding the bats so they're not getting killed or injured, and the project can move on and in a timely manner. So that was one of the DOT was very happy for us to do that work and get the bats out of the bridge, and eventually they'll probably get back in the bridge. So hopefully they don't dilly-dally with the maintenance. But yeah, we excluded them for now, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah,
that's cool. It's nice to see some innovative approaches to handling.
Yeah, we used
a wild card like a bat.
We used the bridge was over. A lot of the bridge was over water, so we had to use, and it was high. So a lot of the exclusions we did from land with a ladder, and we excluded the bats where we had to. But then there was other areas where over the water you can't use a ladder. So we actually had a bucket boat. It's like a big pontoon boat with a boom on it, like a bucket truck.
Yeah, like a snooper from below.
Yeah. So it came up, and they did a lot of the work from that bucket boat on the areas that were over water, which also was a first for me. It was pretty cool. We got the bucket boat idea from one of our bridge inspectors in Harrisburg. He knew about it. There's a company in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, that they basically have a patent on these bucket boats. So
very cool.
It was really cool, like the way the circle at RK&K worked out. So we decided, we can do this work. And then I talked to Justin in Harrisburg about the bucket boat, and we came up with a whole game plan. And it was actually pretty cool, just the kind of way the whole project worked out. Me with the bad experience, Tom with the connections in Florida, Justin with the knowledge of the bucket boat. It was pretty neat, the whole flow of everything. So
when you see stuff like that a lot here, there's no silos of revenue, so everybody's working together.
Yeah.
Like you have this knowledge that's sitting all around. It's connecting people is really important.
Yeah, it was it's a neat project. I think that's the one that everybody's interested in.
That's the one that got you the nickname. That's right.
Yeah.
All right. So that's bats.
Yeah.
And super, really cool stuff.
Yeah.
But that is only a small part of what you do.
Sure. Yeah.
Can you talk to us about some of the other cool things, or really anything you get to do, but maybe focus on some of the cooler things?
Yeah. So, kind of going back to the beginning of my career, again, the bat stuff isn't enough to keep you busy all the time. So the core of my understanding and my experience in my career has been wetlands and waters. So wetlands, water courses, permitting, identification and delineation of those types of features. Everybody, usually has to do wetland delineations on projects, identify where those resources are and whatnot. And that was really the kind of where my career started, was in wetlands and watercourse identification and delineation. The T&E stuff is, you know, a nice niche thing that we do deal with, and comes up on some projects. I mean, it comes up on every project, but the more detailed stuff only comes up on some projects. So that's kind of the foundation of my background, is wetlands, waters, threatened endangered species. So on a day-to-day basis, I'm working on all those things are components of the greater picture, which is permitting. So these projects need permits to proceed forward, and those pieces are really the things I work on, you know, day to day, is pulling those permits together, whether it's a joint permit application, which are pretty complicated and complex for transportation projects, or general permit. In Pennsylvania, we have general permits, which are usually pretty simple, a lot less complicated than a joint permit application. But my background, you know, all those pieces kind of feed into the permitting puzzle. So on a day-to-day basis, you know, that's usually the types of things that I'm working on, is permitting items, you know, for wetlands, waters, or threatened endangered species. In the past, I was the company I was at before RK&K, I was a department manager and had a lot of staff and things like that. So use a lot of that experience kind of day to day to try to, you know, move things forward here too. So
Why is permitting important? I mean, I think maybe some people know what permitting is, and probably more people have permitting for like an addition on their house or something. But can you talk about the permitting process?
Yeah, so it's important because it's important that it's done well and efficiently, because it can really hold up a project timeline, like the schedule of the project. If you don't get the permitting items done in a timely manner and well, and without a bunch of comments back from agencies, that can really kind of mess with your timeline. You know, at the end of the day, somebody's trying to do a project and move it forward, and if there's something like that that's holding it up, so if the permitting isn't done well, that can be a huge problem. You know, you're trying to get a bridge repaired or built or whatnot, and the permit's holding it up. That's a huge problem, just as much as, you know, any other part of the project. So, yeah, that's the real importance of it, is the timeline with projects.
Do you have any? Or I guess what's a good story that you have from the field that either relates to? I'm sure you have a lot.
I got a lot of field stories.
So just, what's something that sort of it sticks out to you as a really, you know, either earlier on in your career or even from the permitting side of things, that sort of exemplifies why you love what you do?
Why I love what I do. I think it really comes back to why I love what I do. I mean, my degrees are in wildlife and environmental biology. So at the end of the day, I enjoy you know, I do the permitting, you know, as part of my career. But really the thing that kind of hooked me when I was just starting this was just being outdoors, outside, delineating wetlands, stomping around in creeks, dealing with animal species, things like that. That's the stuff that day to day that, you know, has kind of really, you know, it's been like the trajectory of my career. That's the thing that like started it all, is, you know, having a degree like that, and the outdoor aspect of it, you know, not being in the office every day stuck, which as I'm getting older, I'm finding that that's more, more common. But yeah, at the end of the day, I you know, that's what got me into this, and I still do really enjoy all that. So yeah.
Can you explain to me, who doesn't have the same background as you,
Sure.
What is wetland delineation, and why is it important?
Okay, so it's important because, again, it comes back to the permitting aspect of any project. The Army Corps of Engineers, and depending on the state you're in, that state will regulate those features. They're regulated as part of the Clean Water Act, part of state laws, specific state laws. And as part of that, impacting those resources, you need those permits to do that. So delineation of a wetland, it is exactly what it sounds like. Where's that wetland at, and how big is it, and what does it consist of? What vegetation is there? What types of soils are there? What kind of hydrology is there? And that basically determines your wetland boundary. And the determination of where that wetland is can have real impacts on a project. So how big's that wetland? Do we need to mitigate for it? Do we need to make up for it somewhere else? You know, is it a loss of a resource, whatever? Is it a temporary impact to that resource? All those things kind of come into play when you're, dealing with water resources, because they are regulated state and federally. So kind of comes back to the permitting aspect of everything. That's why it's important where they are. Yeah.
And having a team that can navigate that permitting process seems like it would be a big benefit to the client, being able to get through that and not have delays.
Yes. Having folks with that knowledge is really important for any project. Yeah.
Sure. How do you measure the success of what you do? We ask this question a lot because we think it's really valuable to understand how different people measure success. How do you measure success in what you do?
Well, in the consulting world, how I measure success is opportunities. And it's kind of, I guess, probably sounds weird, but I feel like opportunities in the consulting world is how you measure success. If you have an opportunity to expand services, provide different things, different services to clients, keep people busy is another opportunity. So I have a couple folks that work with me in Harrisburg on one specific project, and they pretty much work on that project full time. So I feel like opportunities is how I gauge success. If you have opportunities to keep people busy, to bring work in, then you're doing your job. Like, if those opportunities dry up or those opportunities aren't there, then to me, then the success, you're not as successful at that point, because the whole idea is, stay busy. Right. So if you don't have those opportunities to stay busy, whether it's, through the next project or some other task associated with an existing project or whatnot, to me, that's how I measure it in the consulting world. It's just the opportunities. You have to have continual opportunity to be busy.
That's good. That's a good approach to it that we haven't heard before. So that's nice. Yeah, staying busy.
Yeah,
is a challenge. And for example, those two people you mentioned. I mean, at some point that project's going to end.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. You have to have another.
What's the next thing?
What's
down the road? And that's constantly the thing you're trying to work toward. So
nice.
Yeah.
So, what's something that that you failed at in the past, but it was a good lesson learned for you?
Failed at in the past. I think overall you'll fail if you try to take shortcuts on things. The quickest way isn't always technically the best.
Well, let's go to the last question here. What's something that you are curious about right now?
Something I'm curious about.
Yeah. Something you want to know more about?
At work or in general, or?
Yes.
Something I'm curious about. I'm curious about, we've talked about this. I'll keep it with the work topic, but with back to bats and I've been curious, and since I got here, I've been curious about bat work and how it kind of, not just bat work, T&E work in general, threatened endangered species work. When I say T&E work, that's what I'm talking about, threatened endangered species work. How that could be, how we could do more of that at RK&K, and I've talked to folks in North Carolina, and we've kind of had brainstorming sessions and stuff, but that I think is one of the things that interests me the most around here. I think the opportunity to do more of that stuff in different locations of the company, different geographic areas, where we can kind of cross-sell things and expand those types of services. I know this is an engineering company, but I'm a biologist, so those are the things I know about, and I think there's opportunities there. So that kind of has me curious, and it has since I started here.
Sure.
So
well, and just because we're an engineering firm,
yeah.
I mean, there's lots of services
that
our clients need, and that the more expertise we have, I I mean, the better we can serve them and give them what they
absolutely.
need. That's cool. Well, we've arrived at the time in the show where it's time for you to give us your pick of the week.
Oh boy,
Ryan's gonna pick something out here that he thinks we're interested in. I don't know what it is. I know generally the category, but I'm excited to hear what it might be.
Yeah, so you gave me that question, and I thought about it for a while, and I was thinking, oh, I'm an outdoors guy, and there's going to be a lot of that talk through this whole podcast and whatever, and do I want to go down that road? And so I'll give you a quick story. We go on vacation every year to Thousand Islands, New York, on the Canadian border. It's the St. Lawrence River. And we were up there, and we're driving around this town in Kingston, Ontario, and there's like this sign on the side of this building, and it says the Tragically Hip, and I'm like, that sounds familiar. And my wife's like, yeah, that's a band, you know. Like, I can't ever remember any songs that these guys sung. So they start playing them on the radio up there. They're playing them on the radio a lot up there, and I just really, really like this band. And so that's my pick of the week is the Tragically Hip.
The Tragically Hip.
Yep, check them out. They're really good. If you're, I don't know, from my era, I was born in the late 70s, grew up through the 80s and the 90s and through the grunge era and stuff. And they're kind of like alternative band, but Tragically Hip. Yeah.
Awesome. I will put
So there you go.
You will put a link to their website in the show notes. That's a good pick. We haven't had any music yet.
Yeah.
We've had a book. We've had some outdoor stuff.
Yeah.
I'm excited that we're getting a little bit. We're getting like a collection of things that you could do all together. You could go read a book while listening to some music and walk on the trail. This is good. Okay, this is good. All right, Ryan. Well, hey, thanks a lot for coming in.
Yeah, no problem.
Today. This was really good. We enjoyed having you here. Keep doing some cool stuff. Maybe you can come back sometime.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I think
it's pretty fun. First time for me. So first time on anything like this.
First time caller.
Yeah.
No, it's good. We really appreciate it. Thanks a lot. A new episode of Inside Engineering comes out every Tuesday. You can listen or watch from your favorite podcasting platform. We're trying to be in as many places as possible. But don't forget to rate or review the show. We want your feedback also. So if you head to our website at rkk.com/podcast, we've got a real short survey that we wouldn't mind you filling out just to give us some feedback. We want to make the show as valuable as possible to you. And you can obviously also stream every episode on demand there. Thanks again, Ryan.
Yeah.
We'll see you all next week on another episode of Inside Engineering.